exchanged them for pro-Russian politician Viktor Medvedchuk. It's not yet clear just how freely the pair could speak, but Jason Pihajlik, who served with both soldiers, says the pair wanted to fight in eastern Ukraine to defend democracy.
I believe in the beginning they said if they found any foreign fighters that they would just treat them as terrorists, which unfortunately we know for Russia is execution on the spot. So we're lucky that these two are still alive. In fact, their social media presence has probably helped keep them alive. But as we see now, they are being used as a Russian mouthpiece for their propaganda.
Well, Ukraine has suffered its first civilian casualties in the western city of Lviv. The mayor there is saying at least 7 people have been killed after 5 Russian missile strikes hit the city overnight. The situation in the east, particularly around the southern port city of Mariupol, has also been described as extremely difficult. And no evacuation corridors have been opened for a second consecutive day.
What we see in Ukraine today is a genocide that the aggressor is carrying out on purpose, killing civilians. 7 civilians had plans for life. Today, their lives have ended. This means that all cities and villages are in the same situation because the aggressor is committing acts of genocide. He is targeting civilians. He is killing civilians.
Here, a man has been arrested on suspicion of attempted murder following an incident in Westminster in London. The 29-year-old allegedly confronted 2 Ministry of Defence police officers with a knife in Horse Guards Parade. No injuries were reported and the incident is being treated as not terror-related. The Home Secretary has been challenging critics of her plan to send migrants to Rwanda to come up with a better idea, writing a joint article in the Times newspaper with Rwanda's Foreign Minister. Priti Patel reiterated that her controversial plans were bold and innovative. It comes after the leader of the Church of England, Justin Welby, said the proposals were ungodly and raised serious ethical questions. The Minister for Business, Energy and Climate Change, Greg Hands, told GB News the government's confident the scheme will work.
We're confident that through the different migration laws and immigration laws and police and borders bills that we have and acts that we have over recent years, that this scheme is legal. As I say, it's also a sovereign agreement between 2 sovereign countries, the UK and Rwanda.
Controversy in Scotland today. Police there say no action will be taken against the First Minister after a video emerged of her without a face mask on during a local election campaign. An SNP spokesperson said the First Minister was invited into a barber shop during an outdoor visit on the street. Within a few seconds, she realised she hadn't put her mask back on and immediately did so. Meanwhile, all COVID restrictions in Scotland have been lifted. There's no longer a legal requirement to wear a face mask on public transport or inside public spaces. From today, the rules move to guidance only. Lateral flow tests will no longer be freely available either, but will continue for health and social care workers and for those visiting vulnerable people in care homes or hospitals. Team UK has won gold in the shot put at the Invictus Games. Claiming the medal, Lisa Johnston, who became an amputee in 2016, said she wanted to show her children anything is possible. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex congratulated and embraced her on the track. Congratulations to her. You're with GB News. We'll have more news as it happens. Now it's time to get back to Nana.
So it's just coming up to 6 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Now, in light of all the miserable news recently in Ukraine and what looks like blatant hypocrisy from people like Nicola Sturgeon, who was caught without a mask after the condemnation she's handing out to other rule breakers, she has subsequently denied she broke them and will not be prosecuted. So you heard in the news there that she won't be prosecuted because of it. So I thought it was time for a bit of fun. And when I read this, I thought it must be some sort of joke. I had to laugh out loud. A London park, which is named after William Gladstone, who was a British statesman and a Liberal politician whose career spanned over 6 decades, where he served as the British Prime Minister for 12 years, over 4 terms from 1868 to 1894, Well, his family are linked to the slave trade. His father, John Gladstone, had slaves and plantations in Jamaica and Guyana hundreds of years ago. So, Labour-run Brent Council, as part of a slavery review, are considering renaming the William Gladstone Park Diane Abbott Park. That's funny, right? Do you mean the very same Diane Abbott who said that private schools should be abolished and then it turns out her offspring were being privately educated in them? The Diane Abbott who made these gaffes basically asked many gaffes. They basically asked 5 to 13-year-olds to come up with some park name ideas as part of the council's projection on injustice, prejudice and racism in the wake of the Black Lives Matter movement. Some included Multi-Faith Park, which are some of the names, Diversity Fields and BAME Park. Whilst I am all for creating a wonderful supporting environment where people can flourish, and if something truly offends, then removing it may help. But how about we start educating our kids, firstly, about the true facts of the slave trade, which at the time was legal and involved black slave owners who actively participated by selling their people in the first instance. It was horrific and abhorrent, but the UK were actually the first to abolish it, and that modern-day slavery, which we are all guilty of participating in, is happening before their very eyes. To create a better world, this needs to be acknowledged. Slavery is deeper than just changing the name of a park in an attempt to forget it ever happened some 200 years ago, then to blindly participate in modern-day slavery, which isn't really educating a new generation at all. I put it to Brent Council and others like it who go down this path, that instead of changing things on the surface, how about they work on educating a generation on how they're contributing to current modern-day slavery? I bet the children who came up with these names, whilst they may be versed in the Black Lives Matter movement, are totally unaware that many of their modern-day goods and services are actually a result of slave labour. So before we get stuck into the debate, here's what else is coming up today. I'm going to say Happy Easter. Of course, it's Easter Monday. So now I've got a special treat in Outside, which is the bit of the show where I get someone to talk about their lives and their extremely interesting career. At 5 o'clock, I'm speaking to Dr. Gavin Ashenden, who served as the Queen's chaplain from 2008 and 2017. In this hour, is it time we stopped obsessing over politicians making minor breaches of COVID rules? Nicola Sturgeon is the latest to be caught out, of course. I'll speak to the one and only Rod Little, who thinks so-called Partygate is a foolish distraction from the Ukraine crisis. And, of course, in the next hour, we'll hear from the nation's favourite plumber, Charlie Mullins. And have you been wondering about President Trump as well? What's been happening with him since he got removed from the White House and all that social media business? Well, in Trump Watch, I'll bring you all the latest on the US politics and the midterm election campaigns, which are currently getting underway. Could Donald Trump stand again? But first, we'll carry on the debate about the BBC apparently cancelling Harry Potter. Has author J.K. Rowling been targeted because of her views on transgenderism? That's all coming up in the next hour. Tell me what you think on everything we're discussing. You can email gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet me at gbnews. Right, let's get started. Welcome again to my panel, political editor, Sunday Mirror and Sunday People, Nigel Nelson, and also comedian Leo Kearse. His title is a lot shorter. There he is. But he's actually a lot taller. He's a lot taller than everybody, actually. Right.
I'm sitting on the floor here.
Yeah, he is actually. We're all standing. Right. First of all, I'm going to come to you, Leo, initially, because there was the thing with Nicola Sturgeon. She apparently put the mask on, but then it was just she stepped forward, but then forgot. And then somebody said, well, actually, she's not going to be fined because she didn't sort of go in. And, you know, what's your view on all of that?
Well, I think because Sturgeon is still pushing mask rules, and I think you can still get a penalty fine, a fixed penalty notice or something, as if you parked on a double yellow, of £60 in Scotland, which is, you know, a month's wages in certain parts of Scotland. So if you're not wearing your mask, and especially if it doesn't have an SNP logo on it, then you're in trouble. So if she's still pushing these rules, because the thing with Boris was, even though, all right, the government brought the rules in, I never felt Boris really wanted the rules. He was sort of forced just by the fact that we're a nation of crybabies who want the government to do everything for us. He was forced by that to bring in COVID lockdown restrictions.
He didn't even really look like he believed that COVID was actually that bad, because he was shaking hands with people with COVID.
And then he got it, and now he believes it's quite bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I feel like Nicola Sturgeon, because she's always made such a point of having harsher rules than England and really enforcing these rules, I think she is a massive hypocrite.
But having said that, though, obviously they said they're not going to prosecute her, and she said that she was commandeered into somewhere, and then she suddenly remembered, I've forgotten to put it on, and then she put the mask on. But I wonder if that would apply to all of us if we did the same thing. But Nigel, what do you...
Well, I mean, first of all, it's not really up there with holding 12 parties in number 10. So she did she forgot her mask for a few seconds and then put it on. I didn't know the police had actually come out and said they weren't going to pursue it. If they have, that's fine. I think it was quite right the police should look into it. If she'd incurred, I think, is it a £40 fine in Scotland?
I think it's 60.
OK.
And if you pay it within 2 weeks, it's 30 quid.
Right, OK. But it was quite right for the police to have a look at it and decide whether rules had been broken. I think the idea of actually asking her to resign on the top of this is a bit ridiculous, because we're not talking about serial rule breaking, which is what the allegations are in number 10.
Well, I think some of those parties, actually, and we'll discuss more of that in detail a bit later on in the show, some of those parties, I mean, like the one where he went to the school in Bovington on his birthday, and then they had the similar celebration in, Downing Street, which was a similar thing.
Which was a party.
Yeah, but the one that was in Bovington was OK, but yet the other one didn't seem to be OK. So it just, to be honest, most of us were confused about those rules, and I don't know whether... but we'll talk about...
You'd expect the people who made the rules to not be as confused as us.
Well, you might do, but we have to all admit that it was the first time ever that most of us have been through a pandemic, and frankly, the rules didn't make any sense, so it was actually impossible to not break
I just think, nailing Sturgeon for not wearing a face mask would be like getting Al Capone for his taxi. It's the absolute catastrophe that's been the Scottish National Party, who are, let's not forget, a really nationalist, xenophobic government. For some reason, the British National Party, everybody knows of the dangers of British or English nationalism, but for some reason, when it happens with a kilt on, everybody's like, this is wonderful.
Well, they might call it nationalism or patriotism rather than any sort of xenophobia.
It's nationalism.
Well. But some people, they might see that as a positive thing.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Why is that seen as a positive thing?
No, but what I'm saying is, well, that's fair enough. I mean, but I'm saying they see it as a positive thing. They don't see it as a racist or xenophobic.
Well, they want to be independent.
They want to be independent.
Do you want to be independent?
No, not at all.
Didn't we leave the EU? I mean, look. OK, so let's come back to this Brent Council, because I wanted to briefly touch on that, which is what I was talking about initially. Now, they came up with this thing because obviously there's this Gladstone Park and they want to rename it. What is your view, Nigel, on... Because they are a Labour council as well.
Yeah. I used to live up there and I used to like Gladstone Park, and I'd like to stay Gladstone Park. I don't think you change things that are out of living memory or the memory of relatives. So we don't apologise for things where people are no longer alive or their relatives are no longer alive and affected by it. Slavery falls into that bracket. It was abhorrent, as you just said. I don't think that we now then try and rewrite history. So if you've got a Gladstone Park, just because his dad was associated with slavery, leave it as it is. The same applies to street names around the place and statues of slavers. Leave them in place because you want to know what the context was. Their context is where they're placed.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think it's to be pursuing William Gladstone, who spoke out quite vociferously against slavery. So he was very critical of slavery, and he was only 20 when slavery was abolished. So, I mean, unless he spent his early years and his teens, running a lot of slave plantations, I don't think he was really that involved.
Because he's sort of being punished for the sins of his father.
So he's being punished for the sins of his father, and where would we be if that happened?
Well, I'd be in a lot of trouble. I've been in so much trouble.
To name it after Diane Abbott. I mean, what has she done? I mean, at least the Gladstone family probably paid money for that park. I think Diane Abbott, if it's going to be named after her, she should also have to pay. She should take her kids out of private school. She should sell some of her shoes. Then it'll be easier to find ones that fit in the right feet, and then she can put some money towards this park.
Well, that's a bit unfair. Yeah, that's a bit unfair. We've all put the wrong shoe on the wrong foot, haven't we?
I've never put my shoes on the wrong feet. I've got size 15.
I did that to my son. He's only 4 years old. I put them on, and I let him. He walked a little bit, and I thought, They're on the wrong feet.
Yeah, I've done it, but I have noticed.
Well, I thought you were going to come out at least in support of her there. Come on. Right. Well, please get in touch with your views on all of that. If you just joined me, I'm Nana Akua. This, of course, is GB News. Loads more still to come in the next hour. Stay with us. Remember, you can get in touch with the programme. All you have to do is send us an email, gbnews@gbnews.uk. What else have we got coming up? Well, we've got loads of things going on. In the last few moments, Nicola Sturgeon has clearly has been cleared by the police, but more fines are reportedly set to be delivered to number 10 for lockdown breaches. And I'm asking, is it time to stop caring about COVID rule breaking? Send us your thoughts on the various areas at GB News. You can tweet us there. We've got a poll up right now asking you that very question. Is it time to stop caring about COVID rule breaking? Cast your vote, but first, let's get some weather.
Let's look at this evening's weather. The UK is looking mostly fine in the southeast, rather showery in the north and the west. Let's look at the details. The southwest of England, there's going to be a few showers. Most of these, though, should leave space for some bright and sunny spells that will develop, giving a fine end to the day. The southeast is going to hold on to some of the best of the weather. It's going to be dry and bright and still feeling pleasantly warm in light winds. A real mix of bright spells and scattered showers. Let's have a look at Wales, and similar story there. Southern parts of the country, we can expect to see the brightest weather. Isolated showers can't be ruled out, though, as we head into the Midlands, especially in the west. Most places should get away with the fine end to the day, though. It's looking nice in the northeast. There's going to be a fair amount of sunshine on the cards, heralding a dry and pleasant end to the bank holiday weekend across the region. Highs there about 14 degrees today. Now, across Scotland, there's a bit of an east to west split that's looking likely. It's going to be breezy and showery in the west, especially across the northwest, while sunny spells will dominate further east. It's going to be a mixed end to the day across Northern Ireland. There'll be some bright weather at times, although showers will continue to develop, the odd one possibly quite heavy. So across the evening, a few showers will continue overnight, especially in the northwest. The clearest spells are likely across Northern Ireland and the southeast of Scotland.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you, or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
It's coming up to 22 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Now, it is time for our Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, is it time to stop caring about COVID rule breaking? Nicola Sturgeon has been reported to police after being filmed without a face mask on it. Footage on social media shows the First Minister without a mask in an East Kilbride barber shop, which she had visited on the election campaign trail. She has, however, posted footage of the visit on her own Instagram account with her mask on. She denies breaking the rules, and I should say that the police have not prosecuted her either. But do we really care? The British public have been subjected to countless days of Partygate speculation and the Prime Minister's fixed penalty notice. Is there public fatigue over politicians being attacked for not following COVID guidance? So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is it time to stop caring about COVID rule breaking? I'm joined by former Conservative member of the Scottish Parliament, Brian Monteith. Brian, thank you for joining me. Brian, OK, so what is your view about, first of all, the rules themselves? Were they... Some of them seemed a little bit nonsensical, but what's your view?
Well, my view was that I, and like many others, probably the majority of people, went along with the initial lockdown because we felt there was a need, and we were told there was a need to protect the NHS so it could have capacity and nothing else. It could have capacity to deal with what was coming. But suddenly that lockdown to gain capacity became a lockdown to control us. With all sorts of contradictory restrictions, many of which were so confusing that people didn't know where they stood. And then it moved on for years, not just months, but years. I didn't think it was necessary to go beyond that initial lockdown, and I think we're now seeing that in comparison to other countries, other legislatures, jurisdictions, that it was unnecessary because it did untold damage in other ways, people's mental health, to their cancer treatments and all the rest. So I felt it wasn't necessary, and now I think we've of course got the absurdity of our lawmakers breaking their own rules that they made, just showing how stupid those rules were.
I mean, a lot of people will agree that the rules are stupid, but some of the politicians did break them. So do you think that we should be caring about pursuing them because of this? And if so, why?
Well, no. I think they have to take an example and follow the rules they make. I've no doubt about that. What we have seen is evidence come forward about a lot of politicians over a great deal of time. For instance, Margaret Ferrier, the SNP MP from Glasgow, who travelled on a train with COVID, knowing she had COVID, travelled back and via taxi as well, in September 2020. She's not even been in court yet. It's due in August of this year. It's absurd it's taken that long. But that's how slow the wheels of justice turn in the SNP Scotland. But I do think lawmakers should be held to account. That doesn't mean I think they all have to resign all the time for everything. I think if they pay the penalty, they should pay that penalty. But what we had the other day was Nicola Sturgeon demanding that Boris Johnson resign because he'd been fined, and then extending the mask mandate in Scotland until beyond till today, when in fact she could have got rid of it there and then, and she broke it. I mean, goodness me. She went into a barber shop, which isn't guidance, by the way. It is, in fact, the case that it is against the law. And all the other people in the shop, too, are breaking the law, not just Nicola Sturgeon. And the police look into it and say nothing wrong was done.
Well, that's right. She has denied...
What police force do we have?
She has denied it.
Force is it? They can see it in broad daylight with a piece of film with all these people in a barber shop. It's against the law.
So very briefly, because your audio is not that great, but very, very briefly then. So do you think politicians, if they, in light of these, that they should be forced to resign? So Boris, do you think he should resign?
No, I don't think these are actually resigning issues. But I do think that they should be held to account because, like everyone else who has broken the law, they too have to pay the penalties. Some people have had huge fines. And I think it only right that politicians that do that, break the law, they should pay the fines too.
Well, Brian, thank you so much for that. That's Brian Monteith. He's a former Conservative member of the Scottish Parliament. Right, well, I'm also joined by Associate Editor of The Spectator, Rod Liddell. Rod, thank you so much for joining us. Rod, what's your view on all of this? I mean, Nicola Sturgeon said she put the mask on after she went in the shop, but if you look at it, what he did point out was that a lot of them weren't wearing masks in any case. What's your view on all of
No,
this?
they weren't wearing masks. They weren't wearing masks. She clearly broke the law, her own stupid law. so she should be done for it. I think it's complex. I think an awful lot of the anger which came out over Partygate at the beginning of this year was occasioned by two things. Firstly, by the complacency and arrogance of the Conservative government, where they were clearly breaking the law, breaking the rules at every single juncture, multiple occasions, and indeed, in the case of the Prime Minister, not telling the truth about it afterwards. And I think that was a justifiable anger. But I think there was also an anger there, a kind of feeling that in 2020 we've been hoodwinked. And if you think back to those days, and I remember them fondly because I rather enjoy lockdowns, but if you think back to March 2020, the strictures which were in place now seem unreal or surreal. It is hard to imagine that we lived like that. And I think that a lot of people looked at the fact that the politicians were not obeying any of the rules as this went on, weren't obeying the very rules which they set up for other people to follow, and were thinking to themselves, why on earth did I follow them? Why didn't I do what common sense told me I should have done, which was go and see my relatives a few hundred yards down the road instead of staying in my house all the time and being allowed out only once every 2 weeks or once a week to do some shopping. I mean, they were remarkable strictures. I abided by them because I thought they were right at the time. But even I had this suspicion, looking back, in January this year when Partygate really hit the headlines, I looked back and thought, was I taken for a mug? And my wife certainly thinks I was. She thought I was quiescent and a sheeple. She had no truck with any of it. So I think that anger was in there as well, Nana.
So with that anger, because a lot of people conflate, and I do feel people are conflating it when they say, oh, well, I couldn't see my relative, or I didn't do this, or I didn't do that, but yet they were breaking the rules, or my relative died. There is a level of common sense that goes with it. If your relative is dying in a hospital, in some respects, by being told you can't visit them, is alleviating you of the guilt because you may not want to, simply because you're scared of catching COVID and dying yourself. So there was a level of that. Surely people can understand that those rules were probably the right thing, and we kind of chose to follow them. But in the case of things like Partygate and stuff, I mean, I think I broke the rules then, if that's the case, and I probably thought I wasn't breaking the rules. Is it reasonable to suppose that perhaps Boris didn't think he was breaking the rules?
No, I don't think so. I'm really sorry, Nana. I think, excuse me, that had it not been for the invasion of the Ukraine, Boris would no longer be Prime Minister. And I think that probably, given the scale and the number of occasions upon which he broke his own rules, that complacency, arrogance and deviousness deserved his resignation. Because he infuriated the public and let the public down, over the greatest crisis we've had since the Second World War. And there really is very, very little that one can say in favour of it. And as I say, back at the time where I was talking to senior MPs who said, well, he won't go now, but he will go in a couple of weeks. There's no question about that. And then, we have the invasion of Ukraine. As Robert Colville was writing in the Sunday Times yesterday, there is one thing which Boris has always had on his side. He is very lucky, both in timing, but also lucky in his enemies. And I think that's what's happened this time.
So do you think that actually he could survive then? Do you think people are ready to stop caring now and are ready to sort of move on because there are so many other things going on in the world, the cost of living crisis, also Ukraine, and so many other issues that we're all dealing with?
I think that whilst he think that time has gone, and time is an important thing. You know, we talk about time healing. Time also allows us to forget a little.
Oh, I wanted to hear what he said. I'm so sorry. If we can see, we'll try and pull his sound up. But unfortunately, that sound's gone. Unfortunately, we've lost him. That's Rod Little. He's associate editor for The Spectator. I wanted to kind of hear what he had to say there. But let's see what you've been saying. Kevin says, most people don't even care about these rules. They're ridiculous and never should have existed, which makes it all the more important to drag the people responsible for creating them over the fire when they're caught breaking them. After all, they had no problem punishing us. Now, Robin says, it's not the breaking of the rules that troubles me, it's that the rules did so much harm to so many people. And many will try to move on and forget without recognising the carnage that society created, that it needs addressing. Jim says, lawmakers must abide by the rules they make. Keep your thoughts coming. It's coming up to 33 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. Still to come, we'll continue the Great British Debate. And I'm asking, is it time to stop caring about COVID rule breaking? You'll hear the thoughts from my panel, former editor of the Sunday Mirror, Nigel Nelson, and also comedian Leo Kearse. But first, let's get your latest news headlines.
Just after 4:30, the headlines this hour, and the family of a former British soldier who was captured by Russian forces says he should be treated as a prisoner of war in accordance with international law. Sean Pinner and another captured British national, Aidan Aslin, appeared on Russian state TV asking Boris Johnson to exchange them for pro-Russian politician Viktor Medvedchuk. It's not clear how freely the pair could speak. Meanwhile, Ukraine has suffered its first civilian casualties in the western city of Lviv. The mayor there saying at least 7 people were killed after 5 Russian missile strikes hit the city. The situation in the east, particularly around Mariupol, has also been described as extremely difficult, and no evacuation corridors have been opened up for a second consecutive day. A man's been arrested on suspicion of attempted murder following an incident on Westminster. The 29-year-old allegedly confronted 2 MOD police officers with a knife in Horse Guards Parade. No injuries were reported, and the incident is not being treated as terror-related. And as you've been hearing, Police Scotland says no action will be taken against the First Minister after video emerged of her without a face mask on during a local election campaign. In a statement, Nicola Sturgeon apologised and said she only left the mask off for a few seconds after entering a barber's. Officers say they reminded her of the importance of wearing a face covering when there's a legal requirement to do so. And Team UK has won gold in the shot put at the Invictus Games in the Netherlands. Claiming the medal, Lisa Johnston, who became an amputee in 2016, said she wanted to show her children that anything was possible. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex embraced and congratulated her on her win. On TV, online and on your radio via DAB+, you're with GB News. Nana Akua will be back after the break.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's 2 questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
37 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Right, so let's do this. Our Great British Debate this hour. And the question is it time to stop caring about COVID rule breaking? Nicola Sturgeon has been reported to police after being filmed apparently breaching Scotland's face mask rules. Footage on social media shows the First Minister without a mask in East Kilbride in a barber shop, which she had visited on the election campaign trail. And also, as somebody pointed out, I noticed that most of them in the shop weren't wearing masks either, which is interesting. She posted footage of the visit on her own Instagram account with her mask on. Wonder if they were wearing theirs. But do we really care anymore? The British public have been subjected to countless days of Partygate speculation, and the Prime Minister's fixed penalty notice is there actually public fatigue now over politicians being attacked for not following COVID guidance? So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is it time to stop caring about COVID rule breaking? Get in touch now, obviously by the usual methods at GB News, or you can text us, send us a message. Text, I'm not going to give you my phone number, no. Or you can send us a message via email. It's gbviews@gbnews.uk. Right, let's see what my panel make of this. I'm joined with political editor for the Sunday Mirror and Sunday People, Nigel Nelson, and also comedian Leo Kearse. Nigel, straight to you on this one.
OK, no, it's not time to forget. That when it comes to... If it was an ordinary person and some evidence comes to light, there was a minor breach of the rules 2 years ago, I think it would be a waste of police time to go and chase them. We're not talking about an ordinary person, we're talking about the rule maker who became the rule breaker.
Yeah.
People are furious about the fact that they couldn't see dying relatives, they couldn't go to funerals, they couldn't have weddings. All those things were going on because they obeyed the rules.
Yes.
The Prime Minister quite clearly didn't by having these parties. Now, I know his defence seems to be, oh, well, it was a workplace, so that's fine. Workplaces are meant to be exempt. But hang on a sec, I mean, workplaces don't have cheese and wine around them. You don't have tables...
They might do. Keir Starmer had a little party, didn't he? Or, sorry,
he had a beer.
And they even ordered in, didn't they?
You don't have tables groaning with alcohol unless you're in a pub, and the pubs were closed at the time.
Well, hold on a minute.
So the rules were fairly clear about the things you could and couldn't do, and I think I agree with Rod Little on that one. The Prime Minister must have known that what he was doing was not right.
Look, we all know, why is it that when we talk about Boris and we know that he's not that great with attention to detail, everybody acknowledges that, but why is it when there is detail that he hasn't followed, and clearly he's not that up with attention to detail, now we say that he must have known about it and he must have followed it? I think there is a level in parts of what he was doing that he may not have realised he was breaking the rules. I'm not saying
he's the Prime Minister, he should do.
Yeah, but I'm not saying it's excusable, but what I'm saying is that we have to be real because we are actually human beings. And actually, I did point out Keir Starmer, but you seem to think that was OK. Or is it because it was only one and not more than one? He had a meeting, I think, in a constituency office. There are 6 of them, apparently. He said 6, there might have been more, but there was a rule of 6, so he's not going to say 7. Then apparently they ordered food and they had beers. What does that equal then? Are they allowed to do that?
Well, I mean, the whole point was that was looked into, and the answer was yes, they were actually.
Oh, right.
They were actually allowed to do that. Should Keir Starmer have picked up a beer? I mean, photographed with it? No.
What's the difference? Why is he OK and Boris isn't?
But what we're talking about here is we're talking about a party. We're talking about, in some cases...
Keir Starmer is incapable of partying. I believe you.
Actually, I do too. I mean, he was even thrown out of a pub, wasn't he?
Yes, he was actually, yeah. But for different reasons, nothing to do with COVID. What was going on in number 10? This is actually the centre of government. What was going on there, some of the parties were parties, they were pretty raucous. The one that Boris Johnson's been fined for is a pretty minor breach, I accept that.
Yes.
And I was really surprised, actually, that Rishi Sunak got a fine as well, for just popping in.
Because he's Rishi Sunak, yes, exactly, because he's not Boris. So
he can afford it. His wife lent him the money.
Yeah, exactly. For just popping in. So why is just popping into a party okay, but, being...
Well, it wasn't okay, apparently. He got a fine.
Well, he did get a fine, but you're saying you're surprised that he got a fine.
I'm surprised he was fined for that, yeah, because, I mean, he was going there to a meeting. Someone said, come this way, there's a party going on. He poked his head round the door, had a soft drink, and ends up with a fine.
Wasn't it Boris's birthday? Wasn't that what that was? That was the birthday.
That's right.
Where he was commandeered by cake.
That's right. And now we're getting a whole string of other parties coming along, which the police are looking at. The most recent allegation is that at one for the leaving do for his press secretary, that he actually instigated it. Now, if he did instigate it, he then becomes the organiser of it. And we're not talking about a 50 quid fine then. I mean, the penalty for that would be £10,000. And that's what happened to people around the country who organise parties. That's what they were fined.
Right,
so... It didn't happen to me.
No,
did you organise one?
Yeah, I organised loads of parties. All these people complaining like, I was following lockdown rules. Why did you follow lockdown rules? That's your own fault. If the government brings through ridiculous rules that you obviously shouldn't follow, then next time you've learned a valuable lesson, don't follow them. Go and have a party. Go and do whatever you want. Like, don't let the government, guide your life, and don't demand that the government comes around and wipes your bum for you. It's like this honestly. People just want to be mollycoddled and namby-pambied in this country, and I think we need to step away from that. Anybody following the lockdown rules is the sort of person who ejects a USB stick before they pull it out. The sort of person who pays for carrier bags at the checkout.
Well, I think it's called we're breaking the law if you didn't follow them. I think that's why most people did it, and also some of us saw a level of common sense. We were doing it because, so for example, not visiting a relative in hospital, you wouldn't really need to mandate that to me. I know that the hospital is probably the most likely place I'm going to catch COVID, so I hate to say it, but if my relative were dying in hospital, I probably wouldn't want to go there because I wouldn't want to be in their bed, in that place because I've got 2 small children and I'm a single mum. Yeah. So I would make that judgment.
It would be boring and the parking's expensive, you stay at home.
But I would make
very sensible.
I would make that judgment because I think that's an intelligent decision to make. But what the point I was making to Rod is that in some respects the government alleviated your burden of guilt by making it a law, so that if somebody did die and you didn't go and visit them, you wouldn't feel so guilty.
But people only obey the law when they actually see that there is a purpose behind it. And one of the things that, while there were anomalies on the edges of all the rules, because they were so quickly introduced, when it came down to the basic one, lockdown, that made common sense. There was this virus whizzing around the place. The best place to stay to avoid it was at home with the people, with just your near family around you. And as a result of that, infections went down. If you look at the graphs, when lockdown was happening, we have very few infections.
Well, a lot of people who deny that lockdown is any good would say that actually no, and the actual other things that were collateral damage was worse. So, but some people would say...
Well, that's a some people judgment,
some people would say that lockdowns didn't work, but then for the reason that you suggested, then I agree that they did on that level.
There's never been a time in history when suspending people's basic human rights of freedom to associate, freedom to practice religion, freedom to no intervention in their family life. There's never been a time when that's worked out. It didn't work out in the Soviet Union.
Really?
It didn't work out in communist China. It was still not working out in communist China, in Shanghai. And, I think, obviously, there are some benefits to locking down, particularly when we didn't know what the disease was. But in retrospect, the impact, the cure is worse than the disease. We're seeing so many long-term impacts.
But we didn't know what that disease really was, to be fair to the whole, the whole situation. And this is also the first time that we, as a sort of generation of people, the last sort of 100 years, have been through such a situation where we've had to try and navigate through it. So we've learned a lot of lessons. So I don't actually blame the government for trying to make things work and then trying this and that doesn't work and that one seems a bit ridiculous and then overcomplicating things as we do with every single thing. If you look at the visa situation with Ukraine, we just love to overcomplicate things. So I don't blame the government. So that's why when I look at it and see that politicians made these rules, but then some of them broke them, some of them didn't. A lot of them did and didn't get caught. I find it's too trivial in a sense because there's too much going on.
And also,
and I think it's irresponsible actually to try and depose the leader because of it.
And Boris's parties did happen at the workplace. I know, like, not everybody likes to drink at work. I wish I was drunk right now. I've always liked drinking at work.
Are you sure you're not?
When I was a bus driver, when I was an airline
He's
pilot.
joking, by the way. Don't drink and drive. It's
obviously don't drink and drive a bus.
Just don't drink and drive. Full stop. Don't drink and drive.
But certainly drink if you're running the country. This is a very stressful job. You have you'll make faster decisions.
He could have drunk on his own.
But that's the thing, isn't it? So do you think? I mean, look, I would say that for me personally, my view is that it's time to stop all this nonsense of going back and forth. Because, for example, the party where he had a sort of meeting with the kids in Bovington and they gave them some cake and whatever it was, and then that very same day he goes back and has a similar scenario in his own sort of office. This one isn't a party, that one. I mean, come on. We've got to acknowledge that there was real inconsistencies, and is it really the right thing to actually try and get rid of him for that? If it was a bigger breach of something that was heavily serious, then yes, but these fixed penalty notices...
Nana, you're suggesting the Ukraine war is such that actually overtakes any kind of getting rid of Boris at the moment?
No, I think it just puts things into perspective, and I actually I would never have even been getting rid of him irrespective of that anyway.
But it is also a critical juncture for Western liberal democracy. So we're engaged in this ideological battle against a dictator.
But we're not at war.
Russia. We're not at war, but we kind of are. The whole of the West is at war at the moment. It's a proxy war. It's like Vietnam or Afghanistan. We're funding and we're arming Ukraine in their war
Russia.
to defend themselves against a despotic, tyrannical dictator.
But does that mean we could have a law-breaking leader because that is going on?
No, but
a little law.
Well, listen. The fixed penalty whole situation was that set in the 1980s. So it's a new thing where the fixed penalty notice. So I just don't think that, for me personally, that is a big enough imposition to get rid of somebody, especially when he's got a great relationship with Volodymyr Zelensky. Whether he's used it to help, obviously any leader will do these things to try and improve their stature within the world.
Parliament?
Yeah, but because of a party, though. I mean, if it was something...
Well, hang on. So far, we have a Prime Minister who is a liar and a lawbreaker. We
because
seem
of,
to actually
yeah, but
agree on that one here at this jury.
He's always been a liar.
And he's not alone anyway.
So
that's okay.
It's priced into the brand. So we expect it.
That really worries me.
Anyway,
the idea that lying is priced into the brand of our
they
Prime
all
Minister.
do it. They're all doing it. They're all doing it. They're all making things up. They're all doing it. He's not on his own. But listen, it's always good to hear your thoughts as well. You're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GBNews on TV, online and on digital radio. After the break, I'll be joined by the host of the Politics People podcast, Paul Dudridge, to discuss whether or not we are going to see Trump at 2024 in Trump Watch. But first, let's get some weather.
Let's look at this evening's weather. The UK is looking mostly fine in the southeast, rather showery in the north and the west. Let's look at the details. The southwest of England, there's going to be a few showers. Most of these, though, should leave space for some bright and sunny spells that will develop, giving a fine end to the day. The southeast is going to hold on to some of the best of the weather. It's going to be dry and bright and still feeling pleasantly warm in light winds. A real mix of bright spells and scattered showers. Let's have a look at Wales, and similar story there. Southern parts of the country, we can expect to see the brightest weather. Isolated showers can't be ruled out, though, as we head into the Midlands, especially in the west. Most places should get away with the fine end to the day, though. It's looking nice in the northeast. There's going to be a fair amount of sunshine on the cards, heralding a dry and pleasant end to the bank holiday weekend across the region. Highs there about 14 degrees today. Now, across Scotland, there's a bit of an east to west split that's looking likely. It's going to be breezy and showery in the west, especially across the northwest, while sunny spells will dominate further east. It's going to be a mixed end to the day across Northern Ireland. There'll be some bright weather at times, although showers will continue to develop, the odd one possibly quite heavy. So across the evening, a few showers will continue overnight, especially in the northwest. The clearest spells are likely across Northern Ireland and the southeast of Scotland.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
So good afternoon if you just tuned in. Where have you been? I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. Now it is time for Trump Watch. Former President Donald Trump said in an interview that his health was the only thing that could beat him in the 2024 presidential election. Trump has dropped multiple hints that he is planning to run for a second stint in the White House, but suggested that he could end up settling to watch the political battle play out among his rivals for the Republican nomination. Or could all of this be simple mind games aimed at a late bid to become the president yet again? Well, I'm pleased to say I'm joined by the host of the Politics People podcast, Paul Dudgeridge. Paul, really good to see you. Happy Easter Monday. It's Easter Monday, isn't it? Monday, isn't it? So, Paul, what do you think?
It's Monday.
Yeah, it's Monday, isn't it? Do you think Trump could return back into the whole political arena? Do you think that's where he's heading?
If he lives, he runs. It's as simple as that. You can take that to the bank. If Trump is alive, he is running in 24. The reason he has to play cat and mouse with all these kind of veiled announcements is that the minute he actually formally declares, every single dollar that he receives from that point on is treated by the FEC, the Federal Election Commission, as if it's a campaign donation. And so that there are rules controlling, and that's why. But it suits him to play this kind of long game. Will he? Won't he? And I just think he's such quality, sort of putting things out there, going, I don't know, my health could be health. It could be health related, you know. So everybody now, all the Trump haters are like, oh, he's sick. He's letting us know he's sick. It's like, no. If he's alive, he's running. Okay. Yeah. A billion %. I don't have much, but I will bet that. But yeah, he just enjoys being the center of attention, basically, and we're quite rightly talking about it because he is the only game in town. What's disappointing is a lot of go on, sorry.
Well, we saw Joe Biden's performance. That oh my goodness, the when he sort of went to shake the invisible person and then turned to the back of the wall and everything. What have they been saying in America about that?
Well, it's been Easter weekend, obviously, so there's been a lot of time for people to have their head in their hands, just saying, this is our leader. We're at the brink of World War III, and our leader, basically, it looked like when they had the Easter bunny at the egg roll, that President Biden thought that it was a remake of Harvey and it was one of his invisible imagined rabbits. No, people are not. I can't find Democrats who will admit that they voted for Biden. Oh, I tell you, the independents got so many votes because people go, yeah, well, I wouldn't vote for Trump, so I voted independent. It's just like, that's not what you said the day after. You said you voted Biden. Nobody acknowledges voting for Biden now except Rob Reiner on Twitter. That's about it.
He's going to do that. We're watching him do
Look at him, he's gold.
We're watching him do
the
imaginary handshake now, and he's now facing to the American flag and just sort of staring there. Then he's gone to stare back to the right, and then he's suddenly decided to come off the stage. I mean, it's just so embarrassing.
Do you remember when George Bush Jr. couldn't find the door handle? That clip ran on every news show for years as like evidence that the Republicans are morons. It's like this one. If it wasn't for the good people at GBNews, that clip you just played then would have been consigned to the archives. There is such a rigged game in the media where they won't put the same spotlight on Biden as they did on Trump. But it's fine. It's all playing out. Look, the public know what's going on. The mood here is that Biden's an embarrassment. I'll tell you what's the more worrying thing from somebody on my extreme side is that there are forces within the Democratic Party that are the DNC that are seeking to oust Biden. And that's the thing. He's a seat warmer for the Hillary comeback. And so a lot of the stuff where we're kind of, oh God, isn't he ridiculous? Isn't this just like embarrassing, this president? It's like, it's not just us saying it. It is the DNC themselves now are moving behind the scenes to gently move him to one side and to the Twilight home for the permanently bewildered, and then have him replaced by somebody a bit more on message.
So, Paul, I want to ask you about this whole Elon Musk, because he's talking about potentially buying Twitter, and the board are trying to do things so that it makes it almost impossible for him to do that. What's your view? Do you think he'll be successful? And if he does go forward, do you think he'll let Trump back on?
Yes, I think he'll be successful. I think that the Twitter board... I saw a statistic the other day. I think the Twitter board only have like 1 or 2% between them of stock. And already, Musk has got 9%. So they're not speaking. Their job is to speak for the shareholders. And they don't represent the shareholders because they've only got 1 or 2% of the stock. So I think eventually there will be a lot of obstacles put in his way, but he will eventually buy Twitter. I think he can actually do that. What the revelation is that Trump is saying that even if he does buy Twitter and Trump is allowed back on, Trump is saying that he probably won't rejoin. And that's because he now has his own social media platform, Truth Social, which I don't think you can get in the UK yet. Is that right? Can you sign up?
No, we haven't
yet?
got it. So it's up and running in America at the moment. Truth Social is...
It's up and running.
Yeah.
It's up and running in America. It is not really, to be fair, it is not setting the world on fire. It's, you've got the other options, things like Getter and Gab. Getter really made hay when Trump was thrown off, a sitting president was thrown off Twitter, if I can even believe that happened. So Getter made a lot of inroads. But again, I think the play is that Trump knows his value. He's got 80 million followers on Twitter. And he's a great businessman. He's not going to say like, yes, I'll rejoin Twitter. It's just like, no, I think the play would be, and the noise I'm getting is that he might offer Truth Social to be sold to any future Musk consortium. Yes. Well,
listen, Paul, we're running out of time, so it's always really great to talk to you. That's Paul Duddridge. He has his Politics People podcast. You're watching me, Nana Akua. This is GB News. More to come just after 5. So it's just gone 5 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. For the next hour, me and my panel will be taking on some of those big topics that are hitting the headlines right now. But first, let's get your latest news headlines.
Nana, thank you. It's 5 o'clock. I'm Polly Middlehurst. The top story today, a family of a former British soldier who was captured by Russian forces says he should be treated as a prisoner of war in accordance with international law. Sean Pinner and another captured British national, Aidan Aslin, appeared on Russian state TV asking Boris Johnson to exchange them for pro-Russian politician Viktor Medvedchuk. It's not clear how freely the pair could speak, but Jason Fihajlik, who served with both soldiers, said the pair wanted to fight in eastern Ukraine to defend democracy.
I believe in the beginning they said if they found any foreign fighters that they would just treat them as terrorists, which unfortunately we know for Russia is execution on the spot. So we're lucky that these two are still alive. In fact, their social media presence has probably helped keep them alive. But as we see now, they are being used as a Russian mouthpiece for their propaganda.
Meanwhile, Ukraine has suffered its first civilian casualties in the western city of Lviv. The mayor says at least 7 people were killed after 5 Russian missile strikes hit the city. The situation in the east, particularly around Mariupol, has also been described as extremely difficult. No evacuation corridors have been opened for a second consecutive day.
What we see in Ukraine today is a genocide that the aggressor is carrying out on purpose, killing civilians. 7 civilians had plans for life. Today, their lives have ended. This means that all cities and villages are in the same situation because the aggressor is committing acts of genocide. He is targeting civilians. He is killing civilians.
News here at home, and the Home Secretary is challenging critics of her controversial plan to send migrants to Africa to come up with a better solution, writing a joint article in the Times newspaper with Rwanda's Foreign Minister. Priti Patel reiterated that her plans were bold and innovative. It comes after the leader of the Church of England, Justin Welby, said the proposals raised serious ethical questions. Business, Energy and Climate Change Minister Greg Hands told GB News the government is confident the scheme will work.
We're confident that through the different migration laws and immigration laws and police and borders bills that we have and acts that we have over recent years, that this scheme is legal. As I say, it's also a sovereign agreement between 2 sovereign countries, the UK and Rwanda.
A man has been arrested on suspicion of attempted murder following an incident in Westminster. The 29-year-old allegedly confronted 2 MOD police officers with a knife in Horse Guards Parade. No injuries were reported, and the incident isn't being treated as terror-related. Police in Scotland say no action will be taken against the First Minister after video emerged of her without a face mask on during a local election campaign trail. The force spoke to Nicola Sturgeon to remind her of the importance of wearing a face covering when there is a legal requirement to do so. In a statement, Ms Sturgeon apologised and said she only left the mask off for a few seconds after entering a barber's. From today in Scotland, there's no longer a legal requirement to wear face masks on public transport or inside public spaces. Team UK has won gold in the shot put at the Invictus Games in the Netherlands. Claiming the medal, Lisa Johnston, who became an amputee in 2016, said she wanted to show her children that anything was possible. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex congratulated her and embraced her on the track. You're with GB News. More news as it happens. Now more from Nana Akua.
It's 5 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. And for the next hour, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics that are hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course, it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me today, it's comedian Leo Kearse and also Nigel Nelson. Still to come. Each Sunday at 5 o'clock, I'm joined by a celebrity or former MP or someone who's had an extremely interesting career to take a look at life. After the job, we talk highs, lows and lessons learnt and what comes next on the outside. So today, as it's Easter Monday, I thought I would treat you to a special outside because today, Gavin Ashenden, the former chaplain to the Queen, joins me. Also this hour, we'll hear from the nation's favourite plumber, Charlie Mullins. The self-made millionaire is here to tell us why Tony Blair is wrong to argue that 70% of teenagers need to go to university. And our second debate of the day. Should 7 in 10 teenagers go to university? Tony Blair seems to think so, publishing a report arguing for it. But doesn't the UK already have enough graduates and student debt? Send me your thoughts on everything we're discussing. You can email gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet me at gbnews. So let's start this hour with Outside. Now, as it's an Easter Monday, I've got an Easter Monday special. Today, I'm speaking to a former chaplain to the Queen, Dr. Gavin Ashenden. He served as the Queen's personal chaplain from 2008 to 2017, and then he later resigned from his chaplaincy in order to be free to speak out and defend what he sees as the integrity of the Christian faith. And I'm very pleased to say that Dr. Gavin Ashenden joins me now. Hello, Dr. Gavin. Can I call you Gavin, if that's OK?
Oh, yes, please do, yes.
Wonderful.
And thank you very much for having me on your show. Nice to meet you.
No, it's a pleasure, and so nice to meet you as well. I can imagine you're probably quite busy today. Are you busy today, seeing as it's Easter Monday?
Well, I am, but only because I'm pleased to say that people allow me to write for their magazines and articles. So I've got a newspaper article, a magazine article, and a podcast to get ready. So I'm busy avoiding the housework by doing that.
Fabulous. Good job, yeah, to avoid the housework at all costs, unlike you.
Yes.
So, Gavin, talk me through, because there's been some controversy that has surrounded your career. Can you talk me through some of that controversy?
Yes, it's if you're right in the middle of the storm, it's not entirely obvious sometimes what the most important things are. But I think probably in the early 1980s, I used to smuggle Bibles inside the Soviet Union. And I got to know the persecuted church there. People were sent to prison camp. They were treated as insane if they believed and repudiated Marxist dogma. And I was arrested by the KGB and interrogated. And so I got a sense of what totalitarianism looked like from the inside. And I was amazed when the wall came down in 1989. So when the millennium turned and it slowly became clear that there was some kind of totalitarianism growing in the West, I was as surprised as I was determined to try and do something about it. But it's come on us very slowly and rather oddly in a different direction. No tanks, no KGB, but instead cancellation and a kind of mass psychosis. So there was that on the one hand. I always had the sense that if you described our civilization as a kind of wrestling ring, in the middle of the wrestling ring you'd have Jesus, Marx and Muhammad. And in these latest decades, it's almost as if Marx and Muhammad, or the representations of Islam and political correctness, have ganged up against Jesus. And then when they've got rid of Christianity, there'll be a showdown between the two of them. So it seems to me that one of the things we have to do is to try and articulate what the struggle's for and why it matters. And I think one of the reasons I'm a Christian is because I'm very impressed at the way that Christianity defends the sanctity of human life, freedom of conscience and freedom of speech. I think without those things, you have very different societies. And I don't see in either Islam or else in Marxism those values being celebrated or guarded.
Now, for your career, so talk to me about your career up to sort of 2008 when you were appointed a chaplain to the Queen.
Well, it's very simple, really, pretty non-entity-ish. I trained as a lawyer to begin with because I wanted to make law more accessible to the population. But once when I was a law student, the little old lady who sold me milk was in tears. And when I asked her what the matter was, she said she was being evicted by her landlord. And I said, I'm a law student, he can't do that. And she said, my kind can't get lawyers. So on the spot, I said, can I be your lawyer? And I'm afraid I behaved very badly. I invented a fictitious firm of lawyers that didn't exist. And I wrote letters to the landlord until I got him off her back. And then I thought, this is so important. We should be able to give legal help to people at the bottom of the heap who need it. But of course, the legal profession wasn't so easily reformed. And I became a priest. And then I was a vicar for 10 years in Bermondsey in southeast London. when it was fairly poor and run down, and then for 7 years on a South Croydon housing estate. But I've always been a sort of intellectual monkey, with the emphasis on monkey, and I got a clutch of degrees together, including a PhD, and got a job at university where I taught and was a chaplain for 25 years.
See, now, so how did you then sort of see your way into becoming, working as a chaplain to the Queen? And what does a chaplain to the Queen do?
Those are not simple questions, because the English establishment is a very mysterious thing. So being made a chaplain to the Queen is a bit like getting an MBE in sort of real life. It doesn't. At one level, the Queen has so many chaplains, she doesn't know what to do with them. It's an honour, essentially. It means if you get it early, it means you're probably going somewhere career-wise. If you get it late, it's a pat on the head for, you know, sorry, didn't quite make it in time. I got it early, but it happened just at the moment when the whole wokeness was beginning, and also a friend of mine who was a Muslim colleague told me what the Islamic community was hoping for in terms of their role in Europe, and I was very surprised. So I began to talk about that, and then discovered that both by combating what we call wokery today, and also talking about the implications of Islamic immigration, that put me on the wrong side of the establishment. And at that point, doors began to close very rapidly. And I had to choose between speaking my mind or being embraced by the establishment. And I decided that I could only live with myself if I spoke my mind.
Is that why you left? Because you were unable to
Yes. I had a phone call from the palace one day saying, well, it had followed an assassination plot. The MI5 had phoned the palace telling them that there was an intention to assassinate me on my way to preach in one of the palaces, and so they said, well, you can't do that. The Queen doesn't want blood on her carpet. And I said, well, you know, it goes with the turf. Actually, that's what it is to be a Christian. You don't back off because people threaten you. But I got a phone call at some point a year or so later saying, look, if you continue to speak out in public, you can't represent the Queen. And that was quite true, because the Queen can't act as a monarch if she's identified with political movements. So those people who work for her or are connected with her in any kind of way essentially have to be silent in the public space, or else they jeopardize the independence and the mystique of monarchy. So I quite understood that. I accepted that immediately. And so again, I had to choose whether I remained a royal chaplain and took a vow of silence, or whether I cheerfully resigned and said, I'm going to speak. I'm going to answer questions when people ask me. It wasn't that I was seeking attention by trying to make a fuss. I simply answered questions when journalists asked them to me, and that was enough to cause all the trouble.
Now, I want to ask you about your view on Justin Welby and the comments that he's made with regard to the Rwandan refugees, where he said that the plans were ungodly. Do you think that he's being too political, and do you think that that's a view that he should be putting out there?
Christianity's always had a lot of trouble balancing the spiritual and the political, because they do bleed into each other, so to speak. But we really ought to learn from history. Whenever Christianity has got political, it's failed. It doesn't work. That's not what it's supposed to do. Jesus made it very clear. It really is all about heaven and hell and being reconciled to God the Father, being forgiven and being changed and transformed. And then if you have a group of people in whom these things take place, people who turn the other cheek and love their enemies and love their neighbours as themselves, that's what changes society. That's an extraordinarily exciting and dramatic way of infusing new life into a culture. So the politics follows the religious experience. If you do it the other way around, and you try and pass laws to make people better or behave, or you criticize the government to try and get a better performance out of them, that always fails. History teaches that in every single generation. I'm surprised. I don't want to be personal, because it's disrespectful to us all, but I'm surprised that he hasn't been told that, or doesn't know it, hasn't discovered it. But it's certainly not on his radar.
Yeah, well, it seems that it doesn't seem to be. And finally, I want to ask you, so what are you up to now? And in terms of where do you see yourself going on your journey?
Well, yes, it's a crisis. I'm nearly dead. I'm in my late 60s, so I've only got one more lap to go. To my great surprise, I began to feel that only the Roman Catholic Church had the integrity and the DNA to resist what's happening. That was partly because, as I looked through history, although, of course, the Church has made all kinds of terrible mistakes, it's run by people, so it's bound to. Nonetheless, I thought that the Reformation experiment was over, and as I looked at the Soviet Union and China, I thought the Catholic Church has the integrity. So, and I also then began to discover that what it taught was true. So I've become a Roman Catholic, and at the moment, it's not clear whether I'll be ordained as a priest or whether I shall go on simply writing and commentating. I want to do whatever's most effective, and inevitably, as every Christian says, I want to discover my vocation, which is what it is that God wants. That's not always obvious. You don't usually get letters through the post. You have to work it out through prayer and waiting. So at the moment, I'm simply planning to be as active as I can in the values of the Church, in order to share with other people some of the wonderful things that I've received at God's hands, and I think on receiving them can be shared to make a better society.
Well, listen, Dr. Gavin Ashenden, thank you so much for joining me. It's been lovely to talk to you, and have a wonderful Easter Monday. That's lovely.
Thank you. You too. God bless you.
Thank you. Dr. Gavin Ashenden, he's the former chaplain to the Queen. So, coming up, the Great British Debate. And today, I'm asking, should 70% of teenagers go to university? Tony Blair seems to think so. He's calling for 7 in 10 young people to do just that. He's claiming it will help tackle Britain's productivity crisis. But what do you think? Does the UK have enough university graduates already? Join the debate. That's coming up. First, let's get some weather.
Let's look at this evening's weather. The UK is looking mostly fine in the southeast, rather showery in the north and the west. Let's look at the details. The southwest of England, there's going to be a few showers. Most of these, though, should leave space for some bright and sunny spells that will develop, giving a fine end to the day. The southeast is going to hold on to some of the best of the weather. It's going to be dry and bright and still feeling pleasantly warm in light winds. A real mix of bright spells and scattered showers. Let's have a look at Wales, and similar story there. Southern parts of the country, we can expect to see the brightest weather. Isolated showers can't be ruled out, though, as we head into the Midlands, especially in the west. Most places should get away with the fine end to the day, though. It's looking nice in the northeast. There's going to be a fair amount of sunshine on the cards, heralding a dry and pleasant end to the bank holiday weekend across the region. Highs there about 14 degrees today. Now, across Scotland, there's a bit of an east to west split that's looking likely. It's going to be breezy and showery in the west, especially across the northwest, while sunny spells will dominate further east. It's going to be a mixed end to the day across Northern Ireland. There'll be some bright weather at times, although showers will continue to develop, the odd one possibly quite heavy. So across the evening, a few showers will continue overnight, especially in the northwest. The clearest spells are likely across Northern Ireland and the southeast of Scotland.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's 2 questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, but to the point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
So good afternoon. Welcome on board. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. And it is, of course, time for the Great British Debate. And for this hour, I'm asking, should 70% of teenagers go to university? Tony Blair is calling for 70% of young people to go on to higher education. The former Prime Minister, who set a 50% target when he was in government, wants the proportion going on to higher education to rise to 60% by 2030 and 70% by 2040. Currently, around 53% of school leavers go on to higher education. A report from the Tony Blair Institute claims that if 7 in 10 went, then it would significantly raise economic productivity in the UK. Critics, however, say British universities are already struggling to fill places and many graduates are struggling to find jobs. So, should 70% of teenagers go to university? What do you think? Right, my first guest is Vice-Chancellor of University of Buckingham, Professor James Tooley. Hello, Professor. Thank you very much for joining me. So I want to ask you then...
Nice to meet you.
What do you think, in your view, of the figure of 70% getting those students to university? Is it realistic, and do you think it's a good target?
It's probably realistic, and it's a bad target, Nana. You've got to think, what Tony Blair is talking about is skill shortages, isn't it? And filling these skill shortages will improve productivity. But where are the skill shortages today? Well, some of them, skill shortages in secondary education, in software engineering, you could say, they might be made better by increasing the number of students at universities. But then the other main skill shortages in this country are shortage of welders and plumbers and nurses and so on and so forth. And these, it's highly unlikely they're going to be provided by universities, isn't it? So I think he's missing the point. We have skill shortages. If you want to intervene as a government or as a policy influencer, certainly say, let's focus on where we are short of skills. It's not in the general areas that are covered by universities, I'm afraid. I'm a university vice-chancellor. Of course, I want people to come to university. I want people to come to my university. But let's not pretend this is some panacea to solve the UK's skill shortages or productivity problems.
Some people might argue, though, that people who go to university earn more in the long run. That's a statistic people often quote around there. So it's in more people's interest to go to university and get a degree of some description.
Yeah, you've got to be very careful of that figure, though, Nana, because that figure is an average figure. And it's possible that if you are an exceptional welder, I've mentioned the school shortage welders, or an exceptional plumber or electrician, then you're highly likely to make much more money than by not going to university and developing your business and developing as an entrepreneur, then you are going to university. Because it's possible, I'm just making this up as I go along, but it's possible if you're an exceptional welder or plumber, you might not be an exceptional student in certain areas, and they might not be your so you'd end up you'd have a degree, you'd go for a graduate job, and you would not be exceptional. You'd be a mediocre, you'd be a middle person. And so you wouldn't be making those average, you wouldn't be making the figures that are often claimed that graduates get. You'd be better off going into work, better off going into an apprenticeship, better off doing something else apart from university. That's not in general, but that's certainly true for some individuals. That's the point I'm making.
What about some of those degrees that people call Mickey Mouse degrees? Some of those universities pumping those out, and there's no real goal. There's nothing to get out of them.
Yeah. I'm always wary of using that term Mickey Mouse degrees because, of course, Mickey Mouse is at 100 billion brand name. So, if only we could make more Mickey Mouse degrees, which created $100 billion brands.
Good point.
The point is often, I mean, what it is talking about degrees that are not of high quality, that are really wasting students' times. That the universities have to embark in marketing, and they can pretend this degree is a really superb degree that can get you somewhere. You can market it in beautiful terms, and in the end, it doesn't get you very far. It leaves you with £50,000 worth of debt that you struggle to pay off during your life. There are many degrees. Look, I'm a vice chancellor. I said we do law, we do business, we do medicine, we do computing, we do literature. We do many great degrees at our university and the universities you're showing on the screen now. There are lots of great degrees. I'm certainly encouraging people to go to university if that's where they want to go and they feel this is something that can really improve their lives, and it probably will. But 70%, I doubt it. I doubt it very much.
So sounds unrealistic. Thank you very much, Professor James Tooley. Lovely to talk to you. That's Professor James Tooley. He's the Vice-Chancellor at the University of Buckingham. Right, so my second guest is the entrepreneur, Charlie Mullins, OBE. He's the founder of Pimlico Plumbers, London's largest independent plumbing company. So, Charlie, really good to see you. You look like you're somewhere nice. Are you off on holiday somewhere nice?
In Dubai, yeah.
Oh, lovely. Oh, it looks like you're on some sort of yacht or something. I bet it's lovely. So, Charlie, what do you make of this thing? Tony Blair's saying 70% of people should be going to university.
Yeah, I think we've got it wrong. I think it's an old-fashioned idea, and I think it's a massive kick in the teeth for apprentices. I mean, at the moment, you're just getting a university mad politician that's saying, all go to university, and it never worked in 10 years that Blair was in power. It never worked then. That's why we have a massive skill shortage. And what makes him think it's going to work now? I think it's just going the wrong way about it. We would not have this massive skill shortage if he didn't push people to university back, in the year 2000. I mean, there's a massive skill shortage, and that's what we should be concentrating on: apprenticeships, where they can earn money while they learn, and not come out of university with a Mickey Mouse degree that 50% of them are not going to get the job they want, and it's unnecessary. And plus, of course, they have a £50,000 debt.
Yeah, although, as the professor pointed out, Mickey Mouse is a big old business there, so if I came out with a degree that could earn me billions, I'd be happy with that. Charlie, what about you, your background? Did you go to college? What was your deal? How did you get into plumbing?
Yeah, I mean, I left school at 15 and I couldn't wait to leave. There's no point. Not everybody's academic. Not everybody's going to need to go to university. And I feel that if, students were pushed more and more into apprentices, they're never going to be out of work and earn loads of money. And I was told that 50 years ago, and I think it's more so today than ever. I mean, a lot of them, it's just an easy time there. They waste 3-4 years of their life, 50k in debt. And they don't get a job that they require. And let's be fair. I mean, universities are only interested in putting bums on seats. They're a business. That's all they're interested in.
Because 50k debt, I mean, even at my age now, apart from my mortgage, I'm certainly not in 50k's worth of debt now, and that would be a little bit scary for me. So I could imagine as somebody coming out of university, I mean, some of them are coming out with 70k debt. Does your business offer apprenticeships and things like that for people to train in it and become plumbers?
Yeah, massively. I mean, we have 70 apprentices on board, and, if we could get a bit more help from the government, we would have probably had a couple of hundred on. I mean, it's really simple. I think when students leave school, they either got a job to go to university, or should go into a state-funded apprenticeship. And that way it will cut out youth unemployment. It will mean that we don't have a skill shortage, and it means also that, everybody is sort of, being productive. I mean, I don't see how people in university are going to be productive. They're 3 years just relearning things which they can learn in the workplace. I mean, we all get educated in the workplace.
I think Tony Blair's coming out and saying that now. He's got his Tony Blair Institute, but he's given some years as well. I think 2030 he wants 60%, and then 2040 he's talking about 70%. Why do you think he's coming out with that now? It seems very oddly timed and just ill thought out.
I honestly don't know. I mean, I go back to what I'm saying. He got it wrong before. What makes him think he's going to get it right now? He should listen to his son. I think his son said at the time, you know, we don't need all this university. His son's doing a lot better than what Tony Blair is doing. And, you know, I just think it's an old-fashioned idea, and he needs to really, you know, come along with the times and realise the massive shortage and a lot of waste of time is spent in university, and definitely not non-productive. And people keep coming up with this that, you know, you're going to earn more money because you've got a degree. That isn't the case no more. If you've got a trade, a skill, and you've done an apprenticeship, you'll earn loads of money, you know, and you'll never be out of work.
Because we will always need plumbers. Charlie, it's really good to see
many skilled workers. I mean, when are they going to get real? This is the same old argument. And as I say, you know, you can make the figures sound what you want, but in a real world, we've got a massive, massive skill shortage, and many, many youngsters are just wasting their time on Mickey Mouse courses in university.
Well, listen, Charlie, it's so good to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining me. It's really lovely to see you. That is Charlie Mullins, OBE, an entrepreneur, owner of Pimlico Plumbers, in what looks like his yacht somewhere in Dubai. Oh, nice, see? And I don't think he has a degree. In fact, he hasn't got one, so there you have it. Well, let's take a quick look at what you've been saying. Alistair says, madness. While I went to university, it isn't the route I would choose now. An apprenticeship with a law firm or accountancy practice would be my first choice, earning while learning and gaining the practical skills that have helped my career. Chris says it was Tony Blair's disastrous 50% target that encouraged young people not suited to academia to become university students, and hence we have a shortage of skilled labour. Dave says, is he suggesting that the skill set needed for brickies, plasterers, mechanics, electricians, labourers, etc. should all be forgotten about? Good question. Well, keep your views and thoughts coming. You know the coup. It's at GBNews. You can tweet us there or email gbviews@gbnews.uk. I'm Nana Akua. This is, of course, GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. Still to come, we'll continue our Great British debate this hour. And I'm asking, should 70% of teens go to university? You'll hear the thoughts from my panel, political editor of the Sunday Mirror and Sunday People, Nigel Nelson. And, of course, comedian Leo Kearse. But first, let's get your latest news headlines.
Nana, thank you. The top story this hour, the family of the former British soldier Sean Pinner, who was captured by Russia, says prisoners of war should be adhered to and he must be treated humanely. Both he and another British citizen, Aidan Aslin, appeared on Russian state TV asking for help to return home. It's not clear how freely the pair could speak.
To Boris Johnson, obviously I'm Sean Pinner. A lot's gone on over the last 5 or 6 weeks that I'm not fully aware of. Obviously, I understand that Mr. Medvedchuk has been detained, and we look to exchange myself and Aidan Aslin for Mr. Medvedchuk. Obviously, I'd really appreciate your help in this matter and pushing this agenda.
Sean Pinner speaking on Russian state TV. Well, Ukraine has suffered its first civilian casualties in the western city of Lviv. The mayor there saying at least 7 people were killed after 5 Russian missile strikes hit the city. And the situation in the east, particularly around the port city of Mariupol, has also been described as extremely difficult. No evacuation corridors have been opened up either for a second consecutive day. Police Scotland says no action will be taken against the First Minister after video emerged of her not wearing a face mask during a local election campaign. In a statement, Nicola Sturgeon apologised and said she only left the mask off for a few seconds after entering a barber's. Officers say they reminded her of the importance of wearing a face covering when there is a legal requirement to do so. And Team UK has won gold in the shot put at the Invictus Games. Claiming the medal, Lisa Johnston, who became an amputee in 2016, said she had wanted to show her children that anything is possible. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex embraced and congratulated her on her win. On TV, online and on your radio via DAB+. You're with GB News. Stay with us. Nana is back after the break.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
It's fast approaching 38 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Right, so let's get back to our Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, should 70% of teenagers, or teens even, go to university? Tony Blair is calling for 70% of young people to go on to further education to help tackle Britain's productivity crisis. Now, the former Prime Minister, who set a 50% target when he was in government, wants the proportion going on to higher education to rise to 60% by 2030 and 70% by 2040. Currently, around about 53% of school leavers go on to higher education. Now, a report from the Tony Blair Institute to be published this week suggests that if 7 in 10 young people completed higher education, that it would significantly raise the rate of productivity and growth. But Will Tanner, director of the think tank Onward, said that the idea of a 70% target was misguided. It is extraordinary that Tony Blair has examined the last 2 decades of university policy and concluded that his original 50% pledge did not go far enough. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, should 70% of young people go to university? I'm joined by political editor of the Sunday Mirror and Sunday People, Nigel Nelson, and also with comedian Leo Kearse. Right, so again, we're going to start with Nigel because he's, your Labour. And, of course, there's nothing wrong with Labour. It's really good to have, because we love to have the balance on the show, so it's good to have somebody representing from the Labour Party. And, of course, Tony Blair is an ex-Labour Prime Minister. He's put some figures up. What do you think?
I can't believe he's doing it. I don't understand why he's come up with this, because if you go back to the days where his 3 priorities were education, 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 that was based very much around the target of 50% of youngsters going to university. We've moved on since then. So that's why I'm surprised he's actually revitalising this idea. Nowadays, you're talking about apprenticeships. You're talking about T levels, which are the equivalent of A levels. They came in 2020. But the kind of courses you can do, which are work-based as well as classroom-based, you can be a computer games maker, you can be a lab technician, a dental nurse. There's a whole host of really good careers out there. And broadly, I think that anybody who wants to go to university, they should go. It doesn't suit everybody. 4 out of my 5 kids went to university.
Got
the
5
5th
kids.
didn't want to go. Yeah,
5 kids,
I know.
Nigel. What were you thinking? You weren't thinking.
I wasn't thinking. The 5th didn't want to go to university, and he was pressured by the school to go. He held his ground and didn't go, and he's doing very well now. So I just think that if you want to go, great, but certainly there is so much else out there you can do.
Leo?
Yeah, I went to university, and that must have been around the time when they were encouraging 50% of people to go to university, and it was too many because everybody was thick. And I think, if you tell me that 70% of teenagers in this country are like, intellectual geniuses and need to, learn all this stuff at university, that's a nonsense. I'd say maybe like 20%, 30%, something like that would be realistic. I'll tell you why Tony Blair is urging 70% of people to go to university. He gets a huge amount of income from doing university tours, speaking, lecturing at colleges. All former politicians do these incredible speeches and get paid huge sums.
Well, he does get a lot of money for his speeches, but I mean, he would probably deny that would be his motivation. Listen, I speak.
He might deny that that's his motivation while he's pocketing that money. But I think, he's getting that money from these institutions, of course he's going to say what they think. We want more people through this door buying tickets.
Leo. But he's not here to defend himself, so that's the point I'm making. And actually, I go around and lecture in schools. I don't get paid as much as Tony Blair. I have to see who his people are and see if they can talk to my people. But look...
And also, you never invaded Iraq.
No.
You didn't devolve Parliament.
Yeah, don't even get me started on all of that, because he won't have any friends here on that level. No, but what, this whole thing about sending people to university and the numbers, and it feels like figures plucked out of the air. By 2030, we want 60%. By 20... What is the rationale? Because as Charlie Mullins put it very clearly, the skill shortages are in sectors where university isn't actually the be-all and end-all, and actually it's probably a hindrance. So somebody wanted to become a midwife, what's the point of going to university? You need to get into hospitals and be training there and be supported with your training.
Do a nursing degree.
Well, of course. Well, yeah, but what is the point of all of that? Really, ultimately, you have to be actually on the ground doing the thing.
Well, that's what I'm saying. With a lot of arts...
A lot of the practical courses require actual practical application. To being able to write it down and write the right essay just doesn't...
A lot of arts degrees are complete nonsense. I did an arts degree, and I learned more in the 2 weeks when I'd left and I worked in a radio station. I learned more in those 2 weeks than I'd learned in the 4 years of studying.
Of course you would do, yes. That's why I don't think... If they say nurses have to have a degree, I wouldn't agree with that.
I quite like nurses and doctors having some sort of training.
No,
I don't want them just running in there tinkering on your brain. I'm going to learn on the job.
But
come on, you're not flipping burgers.
That's not the point I'm making.
Brain surgery.
Whatever qualification is required to do that particular profession, that is relevant. But what I'm saying is that by saying that number doesn't actually correlate with the skill shortage in the environment in this country. What is his rationale for 70%?
Well, that's what the whole point about apprenticeships, because that does fill the skill shortages. But if you want to be an archaeologist or something like that, then of course you must go to university.
Exactly.
Or you want to study ancient literature or whatever. Those are university things. They may not be of any use in the sense of you won't be able to go and build a brick wall with that degree afterwards. But we must keep that kind of learning going. It's just not for everybody.
And I think sometimes, because I lecture in schools, I talk to the kids and I say to them, how many of you want to go to university? And to be fair, it's usually about 80% of the children putting their hand up wanting to go. And it's interesting that a lot of them are saying that. And I will often say to them, university is great, but it's not the be-all and end-all. If you're a very practical person, you might be more suited to a more technical qualification or an actual vocational qualification.
I think people go to university too soon. They go before they've really decided what they want to do with their lives.
The gap year is a good idea before you go, yeah.
Or a gap decade.
Oh, okay.
And learning.
I was just thinking
You're never going to regret learning, to be a builder, or learning to be a plumber, or learning to be an electrician. Those are skills that are going to be incredibly useful throughout your life, and you can always do it, on the side if you want to pursue art or something like that. It's good to have something practical to fall back.
Well, I also think that when we're talking about Mickey Mouse degrees, some of these courses that have a degree title to them aren't actually necessary, in the sense that you don't need a degree to do that thing. What you need, again, is the practical application of it, not just, I've got a degree in, I don't know, something simple. Like actually, I was going to say plumbing, which isn't simple at all. But to say I've studied and got a degree in plumbing, really? Actually, I'd rather that you knew how to plumb, so do the actual plumbing in whatever qualification that you get, or your skill set, or the level that you get to.
Instead of writing a dissertation on
Instead of being able, I've written all about it, I know exactly what it is, but I've never ever done it. I don't want to touch anything.
I once asked Ed Miliband if his politics degree had actually benefited him at all through his career, and he said, absolutely not. Make of that what you will.
Yeah. Well, what did you do a degree, Nigel?
No, I didn't know. I was going off to university to read English, and in fact, that journalism got in the way, and I decided to become a journalist rather than pursue the university route. Interestingly, I went then sped ahead of contemporaries. They certainly caught up and overtook me, the ones who are university graduates. So I could see there was a benefit of university, and I'd have quite liked 3 years reading books. That sounded quite fun.
Yeah, well, it wasn't. It was arduous. I did 4, and it was too much. I'd had enough of it by the end of it. I couldn't wait to go. I did a degree, but mine was in business. I did set up my own business, and actually, it started off...
But was it useful? Was the degree useful?
This one was, because actually, I started off doing an HND in business and finance, which is almost like a technical application of the discipline. And then you had to get straight distinctions so that you could do the final year to convert it into a degree. And I can actually remember those on the course, because you were on the exact same course as them, because I'd come off another course to do it, so I had to start that way. And they'd say, HND, have no degree. That was for the first year, and obviously I got my straight distinctions. And then when I was doing the same degree course, they went, that's not fair. You've got an HND and you did exactly the same as us, and we've only got a degree at the end of it. So I ended up with an HND and a degree. We're all in business, and also bits in economics and that sort of thing.
I don't think most degrees, if you want an arts degree or whatever, just tell people you've got an arts degree.
Did you pass?
Yeah, eventually passed.
Did you have to draw things, or is it more the history?
No, there's a lot of, so I was studying film, so there's a lot of theory about how films are made and stuff, and I think, people really want practical hands-on. It would have been better to have more practical hands-on actual filmmaking and editing.
You've got two big round ears on the side of your head. That sounds like a Mickey Mouse degree to me. No, but a lot of people who studied art, obviously I'm not poo-pooing it, because for some people it's a practical, useful thing for them to do if you want to be somebody who's studying and going into art. But otherwise, do you think that Tony Blair is actually out of touch then?
Oh, he's completely out of touch. And I'm just amazed at his capacity to come up with terrible ideas. Every week there's a new one. It's incredible.
What about Nigel, though? Do you think he's out of touch?
I'd like to find out why he's actually proposed this, especially now. It feels like he's certainly out of date. I don't know if he's out of touch. I don't know what the end result he thinks it's going to bring. From what I've seen of this, it is something that, no, we shouldn't be doing that.
Well, anyway, let's see what you guys have been saying, because lots of you have been getting in touch with your views. Pauline says, he was the one who made all the universities lower their standards to let anyone in. Still believes in dumbing down. Many people would be better getting vocational training. University degrees are becoming not worth the paper they're written on. Fraser says, I would love to see more teens in university. Not only does uni give a valuable degree, it gives you much-needed life experience. Emma has made this point. Not everyone is cut out for interested in higher education. It is equally beneficial to the country that we have skilled tradespeople as well. Right, well, let's talk about... We've got some quick-fire debates now to finish off the show. Thank you for all those views and thoughts. We love hearing them. But now let's talk about this. Now, midwives, because we were talking about... I did actually talk about midwifery. Midwives in Brighton have been asked to avoid language that might upset transgender and non-binary patients. Words like vagina should be replaced by genital opening, and human milk used instead of breast milk. That is according to guidance published by Brighton and Sussex University Hospitals NHS Trust. Mind you, these guys have got form, because weren't they the ones who were doing all the thing about, I don't know, it's a racial thing as well. Anyway, what does my panel make of that one, Leo?
Well, I think it's a nonsense. My wife's pregnant at the moment. She said the leaflets through from the NHS, and they describe her as a birthing person or a person with a cervix. And to be honest, it doesn't make her feel good. So for some reason, the NHS is deciding to alienate and make 99.999% of pregnant women feel bad. To offset this imagined idea that calling women is going to be upsetting to transgender men who get pregnant. So it's a nonsense. Anybody who transitions from being a woman to being a man and gets pregnant, knows that when the leaflet comes through and it says pregnant women, they know that they're included in that. They don't need to be. If anything, they don't want all this fuss over them, like this drawing attention and creating resentment, and for all the sort of just regular women who haven't transitioned and are still women. I think quite often it makes them feel like they're being reduced and their womanhood's been taken away from them.
Nigel?
I think the individual should decide. So what should happen in situations like this is when the patient comes in, you sit down with them and say, do you prefer these terms or are you happy with the usual ones? Just consult them beforehand. Say that we've had some guidance down. That's what we come up with. What do you think?
Well, what do you... But the fact that they're actually changing things on leaflets and stuff like that, I mean, that's even deeper than that. And to me, I find that deeply offensive.
That's my point. Before you send these things out...
But the leaflets should... I mean, it's just nonsense, isn't it? If you're in a hospital, it's your body's biology that is relevant in this scenario. Yeah. In most scenarios in hospital, your body's biology is actually like 100% relevant. So even if you think that you want to call yourself a woman, but you're biologically female, or biologically male, it's important that those around you acknowledge that you are biologically male for your own treatment. Therefore, it makes no sense to me that at this juncture, where that is the most important thing, that you're now colouring the language.
But you ask the individual if they're offended by it.
Well,
and if they are offended by it, you can go along with the guidance.
But in the leaflet,
if they're not, well, the same thing applies. You don't put leaflets out to everybody. You ask people beforehand.
Oh, that's so complicated.
Give them the choice.
It just seems a bit silly, really.
And it's catering for a tiny, like an infinitesimally small group. I mean, 1 in 400 people is transgender, but a tiny fraction of them is going to actually, get pregnant.
And most transgender people I've spoken to think that this sort of thing is ludicrous. Well, next up, let's talk about the Ukrainian forces now. They've enlisted a tiny Jack Russell dog in their fight against Putin's forces. Two-year-old patron has been sniffing out explosives in the Chernihiv area, north of Kyiv. The hero dog likes cheese snacks, and it's reported and has become something of a social media star. Bless his little heart. Oh, isn't that lovely? Don't you think that's gorgeous?
Yeah.
Yeah, look at him. He's beautiful. Have you got any dogs or any pets? Have you got pets now?
No.
Well, you've got a child coming.
We had to get rid of the cat because it was attacking my wife.
Yeah, no, the cats are usually quite bad when it comes to pregnancy. Right. But look at this little... Some cats are very good, but others don't.
Oh, has he found a mine?
Oh, what a brave little thing. Nigel, do you have pets?
I've got 2 cats, and I don't think they could go out sort of disposing of bombs.
No, bless his little heart.
I always wondered, wouldn't it make sense to clear mines by just getting a whole bunch of sheep?
No, it wouldn't. No, I'm sorry,
They can just set the mines off.
That's cruel. No, I can't have that. Right, let's move on.
It's already been prepped.
Now, of course, video has emerged today which claims that shows the sinking of the Russian flagship Moskva in the Black Sea. It's Russia's worst naval disaster since World War II. But does it also mark a turning point in the Ukrainian conflict? What do you think, Nigel?
Yes. A turning point in the sense that I think this is actually being brought home now to the Russian people, that they're not winning this war. We've now seen there's a lot of dispute about whether or not it was an accident, some ammunition blew up, that was the Russian version. Whether a couple of Ukrainian missiles had hit the ship, the Ukrainian version. Looking at the pictures we see now, it looks like a missile attack. What is quite clear is the Russians were lying when they said nobody was killed in this. At least 40 sailors have been killed.
It's got to be more than that, actually.
And it probably is more than
Let's
that.
quickly go to Leo, because we've got about 30 seconds.
Absolutely agree with Nigel. I mean, this is really brought it home to the Russian people who've been told by Putin that they're winning, and this is all to denazify Ukraine and other such nonsense. And it shows the West's supporting of Ukraine with weapons and also with intelligence, because the West has satellites over the area, so they're feeding intelligence about where these ships were, is working. And so hopefully, I mean, it's going to be a horrible ground-out war of attrition, but hopefully it's going to force Putin into a corner and force him to back down.
Well, he had to sort of get his story straight, didn't he? Because on one side he was saying that it just sunk, and then on the other side the Ukrainians were declaring that they'd bombed it. And then, of course, then the Russian mums would be wondering where their children are. Then eventually Putin then had to retract and say, then he claimed he was retaliating against the Ukrainians, so therefore it seemed a bit odd that he'd be doing that if the ship just sunk on its own.
And mums stopped the violence in Northern Ireland, so hopefully they can stop the violence in Russia as well.
Well, that's true. That's true. Well, I've got to say, on today's show, we've been asking, is it time to stop caring about politicians and COVID rule breaking? And according to our Twitter poll, 52% of you say yes, and 48% of you say no. It's a bit like the Brexit results. Well, I've got to say a big thank you so much to my wonderful panel. Nigel Nelson. Nigel, thank you very much for joining me today. And, of course, Leo Kearse for joining me today. And as ever, thank you to you at home for your company. I'm back on Friday at 4. Up next, it's Jubes & Co.
Let's look at this evening's weather. The UK is looking mostly fine in the southeast, rather showery in the north and the west. Let's look at the details. The southwest of England, there's going to be a few showers. Most of these, though, should leave space for some bright and sunny spells that will develop, giving a fine end to the day. The southeast is going to hold on to some of the best of the weather. It's going to be dry and bright and still feeling pleasantly warm in light winds. A real mix of bright spells and scattered showers. Let's have a look at Wales, and similar story there. Southern parts of the country, we can expect to see the brightest weather. Isolated showers can't be ruled out, though, as we head into the Midlands, especially in the west. Most places should get away with the fine end to the day, though. It's looking nice in the northeast. There's going to be a fair amount of sunshine on the cards, heralding a dry and pleasant end to the bank holiday weekend across the region. Highs there about 14 degrees today. Now, across Scotland, there's a bit of an east to west split that's looking likely. It's going to be breezy and showery in the west, especially across the northwest, while sunny spells will dominate further east. It's going to be a mixed end to the day across Northern Ireland. There'll be some bright weather at times, although showers will continue to develop, the odd one possibly quite heavy. So across the evening, a few showers will continue overnight, especially in the northwest. The clearest spells are likely across Northern Ireland and the southeast of Scotland.
Join me, Darren Grimes, for Real Britain every Saturday and Sunday from 2 p.m. A news hour that comes with a trigger warning. Scorching hot opinion with prominent guests saying the unsayable, and a little bit of weekend fun thrown in. Unlike other broadcasters, I won't be forgetting what the B in our name stands for.